Father, I thank you for this day and thank you for this opportunity to meet together. I ask that you bless this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Not entirely sure even now exactly what I'm going to do. Probably not going to stay very long tonight. Not going to continue with the series on Romans right now because the computer is down and it can't be recorded. I'm going to attempt to record this, but I don't know if I'll even be able to edit it and fix it with the phone. And I don't want anyone who has been following the series online to not be able to get everything, be missing a chapter or two while we work on getting the computer prepared. So I'm just going to share for a few minutes out of my heart some things that have been on my mind this evening. Really grateful for the grace that we sang about this evening in worship. And it's like every song was chosen, tailor-made for some pretty amazing truths. I want to just kind of look at some of it. The first song we sang was I'm Changed. There's a dead man in the grave beneath my name. It reminds me of the day my life was changed. Now it is not I, but it is Christ living in me. I was lost, but now I found where I belong. I could never be the way I was before. Now it is not I, but it is Christ living in me. I'm changed because of you, O Lord. This is the life that I now live. I live by faith. We're not who we used to be. I like that. We're changed. And we went on more about grace, talking about broken vessels. Because the truth of the matter is we're all broken and have been broken. And all these pieces, broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole. Empty-handed but not forsaken, I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes. Laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take our failure. You take our weakness. You set your treasures in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Our past is gone. We're mended, made whole. He takes our failures, our weaknesses, and turns them into something glorious, beautiful, like an amazing artist who takes discarded items and trash and makes something glorious and beautiful out of it. Again, on that same theme of that amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see so clearly. Grace like rain falls down on me. All my stains are washed away. They're washed away. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, amazing love, now flowing down from hands and feet that were nailed to the tree as grace flows down and covers me. Grace like rain, washing us clean, making us new. Kind of a beautiful and central theme. It's been on my heart today, my mind. The idea of the past and perfume. Got the perfume aspect popped in my head. Not long before I left for church, I picked up a bag of trash and it leaked. It leaked and it stank. As trash often does. And as I carried it out, Leah went and grabbed some disinfectant cleaner and was spraying the floor. And the cleaner has fragrance added to it. By the time I walked back in the house, it smelled a lot better. But the mess wasn't actually cleaned up yet. And it got me thinking about perfumes. And that's how perfume got started. First, as an anointment for the dead. To cover up the stench of death and decay. It didn't take too awful long, probably. I know it didn't become real popular until later, but probably really didn't take too awful long for somebody to realize that if it can cover up the stench of death, it can cover up this other stench too. And people began to wear oils and perfumes to cover up the stench that comes from not being clean, from not being able to bathe. And these songs, Grace Like Rain Flowing Down, talking about cleansing us. And His grace covers us, but not like a perfume that might mask what is there and is still there, but more like a fragrant soap that actually makes us clean as it improves our fragrance. Grace washes us clean and improves our fragrance for the Lord, for the Father. And 3 out of those 4 songs talked about that word we've heard in the song Amazing Grace, a wretch like me. And I can't help but hear that. When I hear that word, I think of a Ron Canoli, praise and worship leader in the early 90s probably, who was given his testimony and about how, I don't remember the exact aspect of it, but how when he was a child he didn't understand the songs that they sang. You know, and he talked about Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, and him asking his mom, what's a wretch? Are you a wretch? And her basically telling him to be quiet and sing, which is the kind of thing parents do. Well, which do you want me to do? Be quiet or sing? But anyway, I got off. What's a wretch? A despicable, vile thing. A broken, miserable, poor thing. Or both. And without Christ, without God, that's what we are. And who we are is a product of our past. Sometimes we like to think that we're not, but the truth of the matter is, whether we accept our past or hide from our past, or regardless of how we respond to it, we are a product of our past. What has happened up to this point makes us who we are in the now and leads us towards where we are in the future. If we're ashamed of our past, try to hide that past or lie about that past or mask that past, then how we try to hide it, escape it, and numb it, and get away from it, and ignore it, and push it down, and push it away, and pretend it isn't there, dictates who we are and the face that we show the world. If we are proud of our past, then that pride affects who we are. If we glory in our past, it affects who we are. If we don't think about it at all, it still affects who we are and the face that we show to the world. And the truth is that there are things in all of our lives that we try not to think about, that we hide, that we run from. There are things in all of our lives that we're probably a little proud of. There are things that we look back on and learn lessons from. There are things that we don't learn lessons from and repeat over and over again. In every aspect that you can look at a way to react and respond to something in the past, we probably have at least a few things that we respond to in that way. So it's not like we are dealing with any of it or with all of it in just one way, although some of us have more tendency to do one or the other. And the past can become bondage. It can become our slave master. It can become the chains that keep us down, keep us broken. Or it can become our greatest asset. And it's not about what we did, what our past is, that determines which of those categories we fall into. It's about what we do with it or what we allow to be done with it. Because we can cover our past with perfumes to mask and hide the stench of death in our life, to cover the stink of uncleanness, to enhance what we find in there that's good, and cover up and hide what we don't like. And we can walk around in polite society smelling pretty decent. And if the perfume wears off, stink begins to come through. And when we live like that, the enemy is always there reminding us that we know the truth of the matter is we haven't had a bath in 6 months. And that you better keep that bottle of perfume close because you're going to start stinking again in any minute. The enemy's always there going, yeah, you think you smell pretty. Come on, we know what that is. That's that $2 bottle of cologne you bought at the gas station. It's not real. You're filthy. You're dirty. And we become miserable, sad, wretches. That's what we are without God. That's what we are without Christ. There's a promise in recovery that when we find the spiritual truths that we need to set us free, we will no longer be afraid of the past, nor wish to close the door on it. It's a pretty awesome thing to say. And for some of us whose past are particularly nasty, when we first hear it, it's hard to believe. Revelation put it a different way. Revelation chapter 12, it talks about the accuser of the brethren, the enemy. That voice we were just talking about that says, you're no good, you're not worthy, you're not fit, you're not clean. Remember this stink, remember this death. You're a wretch. The accuser was thrown down. And he was defeated. We can defeat that accuser. Well, how is he defeated? Not by covering him up. It says that he is defeated by the blood of the Lamb. Grace that poured down on us from hands and feet that were nailed to a tree. We sang about that tonight. That blood of the Lamb that gave us the grace of Christ. That's the first part. That blood of the Lamb from the hands and the feet nailed to the tree that pours out and covers us, not like a perfume to mask, but like a fragrant soap that washes us clean and removes the stench and wretchedness of our life. That's the first part of overcoming the accuser of the brethren. And the second part, the two-pronged sword, two-edged sword, I guess I should say, the word of our testimony. Those are our weapons against the accuser. The blood of the Lamb, the truth about grace, the price that was paid to make us clean before our Lord, and the word of our testimony. The word of our testimony. Guess what? That's our past. In common today's terms, it can be looked at as simply as what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And we can get mixed up about testimony. We can get into this idea of, yeah, not only was I a wretch, let me show you just how bad of a wretch I was. It can almost become a prideful thing. I was so bad the devil was scared of me. I've heard people tell their stories and spend 45 minutes on what it was like, 2 minutes on what happened, and less than 5 on what it's like now. Those of us in recovery call doing that telling war stories. There's not much benefit to it. It's all about death. And I had someone sit me down one time and said, no matter how long you were out there, you ought to be able to tell what it was like in 15 minutes or less. And what happened and what it's like now ought to be longer than what it was like. Because that's the important part. The important part isn't about the battle. The important part is how we won the victory. And I can get so specific with the past that I alienate someone that can't understand. Well, I wasn't that bad. I guess what he's saying doesn't apply to me. Or, oh, I was way worse than that. So what he's talking about can't help me. See, we can have the opposite type deal. We can grab the wrong perfumes sometime, trying to make ourselves feel better about the stink. And what we really do is wind up getting something that just enhances all the negative. It really makes us stink. They say, oh, well, that perfume or that cologne doesn't go with your body chemistry. No, it stinks. And we can do that. But the fragrance of grace is different than a masking perfume. It's a true cleansing. It washes us clean. And then we don't have to cover up the past anymore. We don't have to hide from it. We know better than to be proud of it. All the different ways that we as human beings have a natural tendency to react to and respond to our past can be replaced by the way the Holy Spirit wants us to react to our past. There are 3 things the Holy Spirit wants us to do with our past. Acknowledge that our past proves that we need God. That we are in need of that grace that flows down like rain. That we need a Savior. That no matter how good or how bad it may seem, no matter how much of it we can look at and say, well, it wasn't that bad. Or overall, if you look at my whole life, I'm a pretty good person. No, you need God. So we need to learn that we need God. We need, the second thing, to see the hand of God. Wow. God did that all the time in the Old Testament. You done forgot how I delivered you. Pharaoh's army was coming to kill you. I made this great big huge miracle, parted the Red Sea. You walked through it. Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody's ever done that since. Nobody could save you. I did. You know good and well the only way you got out of that mess was me. And you forgot all about it. Start thinking I can't help you. Start thinking I can't save you. Or start thinking that you did it yourself. That you escaped. That you outwitted. That you outpowered. That it's about you and not about me. No. We look at the past to remember the glory of the Father. To see even in areas of destruction, His providence and protection that kept us from being annihilated. And the third thing we do with our past is we use it to give glory to the one who saved us and to help shine the light to freedom for those who are still in darkness and bondage. Other than those 3 things, we got no business playing in the past at all. It's hard not to sometimes. We definitely don't have any business trying to enhance what we see as good things with our perfumes. If we're God's and under grace, there's no reason to be trying to cover up and hide and mask the stench of the bad things because they're not there anymore. They've been forgiven. It's been on my heart and on my mind a lot today. Because today is the 7-year anniversary of the day I walked out of prison. That's a past day. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the stench isn't there. That it's been forgiven. That it's been covered by that grace and washed clean. Because sometimes the world remembers. But I've been able and put in a position to bring light into darkness in the lives of people who were broken like me because of that experience. God has used me to defeat the accuser in the lives of others in conjunction with the blood of the Lamb because of that testimony. Our past makes us who we are. Our past tells us who we are. And if we remember all the times we needed a bath, what it does is it tells us we're a wretch. And we can do that to ourselves. Our minds can do that. Our emotions can do that. The enemy, the accuser, can come and do that, and we can accept it. And when we do that, we remember the bad stuff, and we remember all the horrible things that we've done and that were done to us, and how we're not worthy, and how we're not good enough, and how it's all messed up, and it always has been, and it always will be, and it's never going to get fixed, and blah, 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 blah. Look at all the stink. And we can do that as Christians. And we're not even lying, really. You know? Hey, remember that time you picked up that black and white cat and it turned out not to be a cat? Boy, you stank. It's true. You stank. If you got sprayed by a skunk, you had a period of time there where you were wretched in your scent. That doesn't mean that 20 years later you still smell like a skunk. And when that's what we think about and when that's what we remember, then our past is not the word of our testimony that becomes a weapon against the accuser. It's the club we beat ourselves with and keep ourselves ineffective with. But when we go, yeah, here's what it was like. I was stinky and I needed a bath. And here's what happened. Grace, like rain, fell down on me. The blood of the Lamb from hands and feet that were nailed to a tree washed me clean. It didn't cover up the landfill. It removed the garbage as though it had never been there. All that stuff everybody remembers about me, not only is it true, there's worse that they don't know about. And God cleaned it all. That's what happened. What it's like now is I don't need to wear perfume to cover up the stink because I'm clean before my Lord. I'm free from those things. I no longer have to spend my day wallowing in the mire and the mud and the muck. I get to walk with God. Not on my strength. I never was any good at it. Remember, you just pointed out how I used to stink. But because of that grace, I now have the power to be free of the things I wasn't free of before. Oh, and by the way, you can too. It's that easy. The accuser is defeated because whenever, I've seen the little deal, the saying, when the devil reminds you of your past, remind him of your future. Forget that. It's stupid. Or his future, excuse me. It's still stupid. Forget it. No. When the devil reminds you of your past, say, oh, thank you. That's my segue. Let me tell you what Jesus did about it. Let me tell you how that past got cleaned up. Let me tell you how the broken got mended and whole. Yeah, on this side of eternity, I'm still going to have scars. I don't get the white as snow part on the outside quite yet. The spirit is clean. The spirit is white as snow. The rest of me has a past. That past is still stained. Like a coffee cup that's clean but still a little brown inside. You can tell it was a coffee cup. There are scars that show how I lived that will never fade away on this side of eternity. We can cry over those. We can let the accuser beat us up over those. Or we can use them as they were intended to be used. Yeah, there's an interesting story behind that scar. Let me tell you how God fixed that. Let me tell you how I used to be miserable. I was a wretch. I felt alienated from God and from others. I was a chameleon, able to wear masks to blend in with any situation and with any group, and yet I never felt I fit in anywhere. And I could be completely and utterly alone in the middle of a crowd. I got deceived and bought the lie that God hated me. I tried everything I could think of to fill up the empty space that was inside of me when God no longer filled it. Some things worked for a while. Some things didn't. The things that didn't, I didn't do anymore. The things that worked for a while, I did as much as I could. Some of them became my master, and I became their slave. Some of them led me into places that I should never have been, and you wouldn't want to go. And then I discovered the truth that God said I had value, so much so that He was willing to send His Son to die. And that means that He loved me. That I was one of the whosoever. That everybody is part of the whosoever. There's a phone commercial out right now where it talks about everybody gets this special deal. And the guy she's telling goes, even that guy over there? She said, yes. He said, you didn't even look to see who I was talking about. And she said, he's part of everybody. Well, guess what? You're part of everybody. You are a whosoever. And everybody you see, everybody you know of, everybody you encounter, the people you admire and the people you despise are all whosoevers. There is nobody who has ever breathed, is breathing, or will ever breathe that does not fall under the category of whosoever. They are loved of God. And if they will accept the grace that poured out, He will clean them white as snow. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to some of us. That's what can happen with everyone. And what it's like now, there are still old wounds that have healed enough that I can function, but that still hurt when it's going to rain. There are still wounds that, ugly scars for now, than it was. The stink is gone. I don't hate myself today. I don't feel alienated today. Whether I'm alone, solitary, or in a crowd, I don't have to be alone, because today I don't have a belief in God. I have a relationship with my Heavenly Daddy. It has the power to give me the strength to walk with Him clean, perfect. I fail at that way more than I should, and He is also faithful and gracious to forgive me. Today I have a life worth living because I found a God worth loving who loves me. And you can have that too. We don't need perfumes to try to trick ourselves into thinking we're okay and don't stink. To try to make it where we can walk through the world without people running in horror, holding their noses. And to try to trick God into thinking we're cleaner than we are. Because the fragrant grace of the blood of Christ covers us in a way that removes those offenses. And we are no longer wretched before God, but we are made new, clean, fresh, and bright. Father, I thank you for your grace. I thank you for the freedom that you've given me, for the deliverance, the providence, the protection that you have placed on my life. Times when I willingly turned from you. When everything said, stomp him out. The law said kill. You said grace. I thank you for that. And I thank you that what was available to me is available to all who need it and who want it. Help us to use our past the right way. To see that we needed you and that we still do. That we can't do it on our own. To see the way that you have been mighty on our behalf and gracious towards us. Where you have ignored our stench and embraced us with your love. And let us use it not to puff ourselves up, but to give you glory and to help others. Continue to wash us. Continue to mend us. And help us look forward with great expectation to that day when we cross over from this side of eternity to the next. And the scars will be gone. Every piece of brokenness will be whole. There will be no residual effects or stains of any kind. Thank you for that, Father. Draw us closer to you. Remind us that we don't have to run from who you are and who we were, because who we are in you trumps out everything we've been. In Jesus' name, amen.